He says the only fracks that we have scheduled in Arlington are off of the Truman pad.
That's the one that I'm within 2,000 feet of.
Okay, and says if the schedule holds up, they will occur from 8/23 to 9/13, so they're not scheduled for another 4 months or so.
Okay, well, I'll contact the city of Arlington. They told me June 1st is what they had scheduled.
Okay, well, this is directly from Chesapeake, so they ought to know when they're going to do the fracking.
Well, the city's kind of late on updating their website too, so I thought I would take this matter in my hands because I was running out of time. Who was the contact at Chesapeake that gave you these dates?
Steve Turk.
Okay. And are they going to frack, they don't frack simultaneously, they can't. They're going to frack consecutively those 3 wells. Is that how that works?
Yes, ma'am.
But do they flow back them all at the same time or one at a time?
That's a question I can't answer for sure. That would be kind of the way they would want to do it. I would suspect that they'd frack one and flow it back pretty quick after they frack it, and then frack the next one and flow it back.
Don't different companies come back? Like one company does the fracking, another company does the flowback carry-off, or would Halliburton or Schlumberger be doing the fracking?
Well, Halliburton or a Schlumberger or a service company, there's several of them that would do the fracking, and then either Chesapeake could flow it back themselves or they'd hire somebody else to do it.
Because Chesapeake flowed back a well over there at Division and Bowen in March, but they fracked in December of 2011. And that water stayed down there for 3 months, and this woman got sick in her parking lot when they were flowing it back. She had to have an ambulance come, the EMTs come and attend to her. It was really foul smelling, and I just want to make sure that they don't have some schedule constraint where they don't get to flow it back right away. I don't want that to happen again.
Well, normally, fracking I've ever been around, they flow it back start flowing it back within 24 hours of the frack job.
That's good to hear. Now, when they flow back, the city of Arlington was telling me their ordinance doesn't mandate that they flow it back into a closed container. And I know scientifically you can't flow back into a closed container, but Chesapeake says their green completions are standard, but they don't connect it to the separator and the pipeline until they detect gas. And the beginning stages of flowback, we see this white cloud, they call it steam, wafting off the site, and we were wondering why the Railroad Commission doesn't make them, if they have the green completions equipment, flow back straight to the separator and the pipeline. Is there a reason?
Well, our rules don't require them to separate into an enclosed container.
Because if they had a vacuum and scrubbers, they could flow back into a closed container. We just hate to have that top flow be exposed to the air. That's the same thing as a frack pond, if you ask me. This is an urban area. I mean, they're within 600 feet of some of my neighbors. Is that what the EPA is trying to regulate, that they push back to 2014? Is the initial flow back, or just mandating connecting to a pipeline at some point?
No, I can't speak to anything the EPA is trying to mandate. I'm not familiar with it.
Well, EPA was trying to make green completions the law, but they said that the industry said they didn't have, it would take them 2 years to get the equipment to be flowing back into these separators. Pretty much they want a pipeline connected when they flow back, so that the gas will go, instead of venting the gas or flaring the gas, that it can go to a pipeline. But I'm not thinking that the EPA has gone far enough in mandating that this gas flows back into a pipeline. I'm worried about the top flow before they connect it to the pipeline.
Before they start detecting any gas.
Right, because there's chemicals in the frack water, and there is BTEX in that flowback, because Colleyville did an air study. The residents bought SUMA canisters and used the EPA certified lab, and the city of Colleyville hired their own independent air study, and both of these air studies did detect benzene in our dry gas. And one of the tests was 60 parts per billion, one came back 85 parts per billion, and that's 6 to 9 times the ATSDR MRL level. There was a 2-week air test, and when I called TCEQ, I said, what is my ESL comparisons? Do I use short-term ESLs, that the state uses, or the long-term? And she's like, no, you need to use a 2-week ESL, and the closest you're going to get is the Agency for Toxic Substances, that federal ATSDR, and that's 9 parts per billion. So I'm just knowing that, I'm within a half a mile, and the Colorado air study came out, that 3-year air study, that those that live within a half a mile have a higher risk. And I was looking into what was the higher risk, and they said there's 2/3 more hydrocarbons during the well completion phase than, with just a drill site sitting there burping out of those condensate tanks. So I just don't want to be anywhere near the flowback. That's why I was really trying to get those dates. I really appreciate you giving me that August, September time frame.
Okie doke.
All right, well, I'm glad I was able to air my concerns. Who could I talk to from the Railroad Commission that can try to get them, if they're going to have the green completions, if they have the equipment, make them not delay? I could see it would be more expensive for Chesapeake to connect to the separator pipeline, because that water doesn't get to flow into those frack tanks that are easily driven off. That water would have to be flowing back to their permanent tanks, and they'd be like constantly evacuating those and transferring that water. But I don't know. It can't go into one of those closed containers, because TCEQ told me that water's volatilizing. There's got to be a way to flow back without wafting those hydrocarbons into our air shed. I mean, can you explain the process a little better to me? I need to feel a little better about what I already know.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not real familiar with the flowback process in the Tarrant County area, because you get out in the country a little more and they just flow it back into the air, basically into an open pit, until they start getting enough gas where it's worthwhile to run it through the separator and put it down the line.
And they don't allow frack pits in the city limits, but what they do allow is for the water to go through a piping system and then into these tanks. But our ordinance doesn't mandate the tanks be closed, and those open hatches have this white cloud wafting out of it, and we've got people within 600 feet, and there's got to be a way to flow this stuff back in an urban area, or they shouldn't be allowed to do it until the technology catches up.
Well,
Well, I didn't get your name. What was your name again?
Mike Vanderworth.
And you're in Kilgore. Yeah, I hated to see Mr. O'Quinn leave. Where did he go?
He retired as a commission and went to work for a local independent oil and gas company.
Yeah, I've seen some of our TCEQ people go to work for Quicksilver, and one of the investigators went to work for the city of Arlington, and I'm just not feeling comfortable about, these job hopping opportunities. It just, I don't know. I just don't see anybody on our side. How do you spell your last name?
V as in Victory. ANDERWORTH.
Okay, I really appreciate your time, and thank you for verifying those dates. That gives me the summer to think about, if I want to move.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.